Hello, welcome to the return of the One Soccer Hangouts live on YouTube. Well, the final is set at the Island Games. Will Forge repeat as CPL champs, or will Stephen Hart continue his quest for figuring out what he has for 2021 by winning the North Star Shield? We will preview the final, also talk about the Island Games itself and all the teams involved, and we'll have some fun doing it as well. I'm Ace Raymond. I'll be hosting today's show, joined by play-by-play voice for the final, Gareth Wheeler, One Soccer reporter in Charlottetown, Oliver Platts, and the self-proclaimed One Soccer experts, Kurt Larson. Welcome, fellas.
Going on?
It's good to have everyone back.
There is nothing that I wanted to do more seriously than get back on Zoom with you three guys.
There it is.
Nothing.
All right, a quick recap of the CPL's Island Games. It started with all 8 teams playing each team once. The top 4 teams in the table moved on to the group stage. Cavalry, Wanderers, Forge, and Pacific played each other once. Top 2 teams based on points then earned a spot in the final match, which we played between Forge and Halifax with our extended coverage on One Sock. We have a lot to get to, so let's begin with the 6 teams not in the final. Start from the bottom of the table, and we will work our way up. FC Edmonton was the first team to be officially eliminated from the Island Games, so they finished with just 1 point and were dealt a serious blow in their first match when Captain Amir Didic went down with an injury after just an hour of action on the pitch. He ended up with 241 minutes at the Island Games. So what is your one question, Kurtz, for Edmonton heading into next season?
There only is one question, and it's, what's going on with Jeff Paulus and if he's going to be part of the club anymore. I think there's roster questions throughout, but ultimately those questions can't be answered until you find out or you assign somebody to the top, right? So, Oliver Platt spoke with Jeff after the matches out there, and Jeff had mentioned that maybe they need a new voice in the room. So my question is, who will be the coach next year? Will it be Jeff Paulus? Will he be involved in the club? We saw FC Edmonton send out a very, very long letter to fans that said there were going to be changes and they were going to try and get it right. So we'll see what that means.
Yeah, and Gareth, what's your question? Or go ahead, Ollie.
Well, no, I was just going to add, if there is a coaching change, they can't expect that to fix everything. And I think, I look at FC Edmonton and it kind of reminds me of what's happened in MLS over the last few years, that some clubs have really put their foot on the pedal and tried to take steps forward on and off the pitch. And other clubs have been left behind a little bit. And Edmonton have got to decide, what do they want to do here? Are they going to work on that stadium? Are they going to work on, the kind of all-round professionalism of that club and keep up with what Pacific are doing and what Halifax are doing? Or are they going to let themselves kind of fall by the wayside a little bit? Because just a coaching change isn't going to turn it around.
With Edmonton, they do have some really good young players on the side, but whether it's Jeff Paulus, who I think that we all really like as a coach and as an individual, what you see from teams in the Canadian Premier League, the ones that are successful, there's a clear identity on the field. Yeah. There's a way that they play. There's a structure. There's a system. And I don't feel like Edmonton has that as much so as other teams. They've changed formations a number of times. Are they going to be the counterattacking side? Are they going to be a team that's going to dominate possession? I don't know what the team's identity is. So when you lose a player like Didic, you're not going to bring in a player like for like that's going to do a job, but you need to be able to rely on that system or that structure. And I just don't think they have it. So whether it's Jeff Paulus or whether it's someone else, I think top to bottom, they need to decide what type of football FC Edmonton's going to play and then go from there. So I think that there's a lot of big decisions on that front that are there to be had this offseason.
Was the experiment a failure out there? I mean, Jeff Paulus mentioned, how he wanted to keep the club local based, right? He wanted young players from within Alberta, from within Edmonton. Was that a failed experiment?
I don't think so, because I think that there's some good young players who are 19, 20 years old who we haven't seen the best of quite yet. But again, I think it just goes down to the structure. They need to be put in a position to succeed. I think the players that they brought in Alaman and Boakai were a little bit of a disappointment. They're still lacking that little bit in attack. And if they wanted to play the way that Jeff Paulus wanted them to play in this tournament, I'm just not sure if they had the players. I think they were better.
Like bandages. They felt like bandages to me. Alman felt like a bandage to me.
It's a short-term solution for a long-term issue. You need to figure out what style of play first and foremost.
I think some of those guys, young guys in particular, need a bit of a wake-up call as well about what it's really going to take to become full professionals and make a career here. And I think that's one of the reasons Jeff has said he's considering his own future, is that for better or for worse, he's going to protect those guys. He loves them, and he'll always stand up for them. And you look at what Pamadou Carr has done for Pacific this year, and yeah, he's got a great connection with a lot of those players and the same kind of fondness for them. But he'll also, when they need to be told something, he'll tell them. And he has the kind of respect in the room to be able to do that. Not that Jeff doesn't, but as I say, Jeff really likes to protect those players that he's brought through the system. And I just wonder if they maybe need someone who's going to come in and be a bit more blunt and honest and really tell them what it's going to take if they want to be professional footballers. Because I think some of them just haven't really progressed from where they were at 16 and 17.
Well, you mentioned Coach Pa. Let's move on to another new coach in the league with the expansion side, Mista. Atletico Ottawa finished with 2 wins, 2 draws for 8 points, and went into the final weekend of the first stage with a chance to move on to the group stage. Not many people would have predicted it. So what are you asking of Ottawa after their first season, Gareth?
I'm really intrigued by Ottawa. They caught my attention. Their starting 11 were very good. And I think that Mista did an excellent job considering the circumstances. It's twofold. It's depth, how you fill out the other spots in this team, and how that international influence is going to play out. Obviously, COVID, threw a wrench in those plans largely. But what other international players are they able to pull using the Atletico brand? Because with Shop Top, I thought Fisk did a nice job. I think Malik Hamilton's a rising and emerging star in this league. There's some really good Canadian pieces, but I think it's going to be the international players that they bring in that can take this team to the next level.
It's just about adding to a solid unit already. I think, Gareth, you kind of mentioned that a little bit. What impressed me about Ottawa, I thought, was just how quickly they came together and how, in really a matter of, 6 weeks, 8 weeks of being together, they all seem to play for the crest. They all seem to buy into what Mista was selling. And then, as you mentioned, I was impressed with some of the players they brought in. I mean, who would have thought Shaw would have been such a difference maker for them? Very, very little known. Nobody really knew what to expect. So it's all positive for Atletico. I mean, they came into this tournament, could they get a result? Could they get 1 win? I think they got 2. So, it's all positive moving into the offseason.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if they bring back any of the Fury guys next year. There were a lot of people who were surprised that they didn't sign some of those players this offseason. And I think maybe with 1 or 2 of them, there's still an appetite to potentially go back to Ottawa. Jamar Dixon's born and raised there. He's fitting really well at Pacific, but I wonder if he might want to go home at some point. Max Tissot has been a good addition for Forge, but I don't know if he gets in their best 11. He probably does in Ottawa. Carl Howarth went to the States, so I would be interested to see if any of those guys end up potentially coming back and playing in Ottawa again, and they could be, pretty nice additions to that team.
Yeah, sorry. Of those teams that didn't make the group stage, I mean, along with Y9, you can make a case that either one of those teams can make a big jump next year. Honestly, a full training camp, a full off-season of recruitment to our nation's capital. I think there's a lot to be excited about with Atletico Ottawa.
You could probably add Valor to that list as well. It's the next team we're going to look at. And it was a completely different look from Valor in Charlottetown. They finished the opening stage with 8 points as well. Rob Gale's group fought hard. They're difficult to break down. They had 2 clean sheets in the opening round, but they were also shut out in 4 of those 7 games. So Ollie, what's your question for Valor heading into next season?
I think it's just how much change they're going to need to go through again. You can't keep doing it every year. They did a really good job with it this year. But you look at, is Julian Dunn going to come back? Is James Pantemis going to come back? Could an MLS team look at Andrew Jean-Baptiste and see a pretty good depth centre-back there? If they lose those 3 guys, then that's all of a sudden blown a hole in that rebuild you've just done, right? And so you've got another uphill struggle coming. And as I say, it's very, very difficult to continually rebuild the team every single year the way they had to this year. So bringing back those 3 guys, if they can, it would be huge. Otherwise, I think Rob Gale's going to have another big task on his hands to replace them, as he did with Bustos and Petrasso a year ago.
Yeah.
Wheels.
Front and back to Ollie's point, Julian Dunn was outstanding, wasn't he, over the course of this tournament? But he came on loan. I just wonder if Dunn's future is with Toronto FC or will it be in the Canadian Premier League? I think that he needs to make a decision on where his future lay. And if I'm an MLS team right now, I mean, I'm calling Andrew Jean-Baptiste's agent. Like this wasn't just good form in this tournament. He was exceptional at the Gold Cup with Haiti. He's a proven international player. He's played in MLS before. For me, if he stayed healthy, he could have been the top player at these Canadian at these island games. And up front, I mean, they need a number 9 between Ricci and Hundle. The amount of opportunity and chances, they just couldn't convert. And there's a lot to like about both players, but you need that true finisher, and they simply don't have that up top. So those are my 2 biggest questions: filling whatever holes at the back, and then adding a couple proven goal scorers, because I think that Rob Gale proved this season that he is a very good coach in this league. He did a great job with this group, but you need the pieces, you need the players to go out and achieve what he wants to achieve here.
You're singing a much different tune about Rob Gale these days, Gareth. I like it.
If season 1, like it wasn't all on the coach. He simply didn't have the players. And then you look at 16 new players coming in, you're like, what's this group going to be all about? But I think they answered the questions, and I think Gale did a great job with his team at this tournament.
I think so. He did such a great job building this team for this event that it's going to cause him all sorts of problems in the offseason. Because I agree with what Oliver Platt said. This was a team that was built for, I think, this specific 5 weeks of soccer. You're looking at potentially Baptiste being gone, Dunn being gone, and Temis going back to the Montreal Impact. I mean, you're losing so many key players, and I don't see how he can replace those guys and get the same performances out of whoever those replacements are. So I think Valor's, I don't want to say they're in trouble, but I'm going to be shocked if they're at the level they were this year in 2021.
Don't you just need to go? Don't you just need to? Sorry, Ollie. Don't you need to go out and convince these players? Like Pentemis isn't going to be first choice with Montreal Impact. I think that Julian Dunn should be in the mix for regular minutes with Toronto FC. I'm not sure if he will. You just need to convince these players that, look, you're still young, but you need to play. You need first team football minutes, and this is the best place for you to do so.
Yeah, I just think you get into that tricky situation where we're not really sure what the loan terms are. You know, what are the implications for the salary cap? Was this just a short-term thing which allowed them to get these players in underneath the salary cap? That's where it gets confusing for me, and I just don't know.
What I'd add to that is that, you know, Julian Dunn and James Pantemis aren't the only young players in MLS academies who need minutes right now, right? So I think if you've shown this season that you can be a really good place for these young players to come, go straight into the team, play some meaningful games. That could bode well for them, and that could kind of be a little avenue for them to potentially, you know, be the place to go for some of these young guys, whether it's from TFC, the Impact, or the Whitecaps going forwards.
Yeah, recruitment is key for all the CPL teams. And one team that made some serious changes coming into this year was York 9. They had a lot of hype heading into the Island Games. They added Michael Petrasso to the roster, Paul Stelteri to the coaching staff, and Angus McNabb to the front office. They were undefeated heading into the final match, but a 1-0 loss to Cavalry meant the end of the road for Jimmy Brennan's group. So what is your question for York 9? Back to you, Kurt.
I think they have the least to do this offseason, which could bode well for them, but we're 2 years into, you know, this club's existence, and I feel like we're still waiting for it all to come together. I feel like every time the team sheet comes out, you look up and down the roster and you see Maury Donor at right fullback, one of the best performers. You see Abzi on the left, which we got excited about last year. The midfield is experienced. They supposedly have these international players up front and goal scorers. Ryan Telfer, best player in the league sometimes. So can they bring it all together? Because they don't have that much to do in terms of, you know, roster changes. But, you know, are the international signings the right guys? And can they actually get it right on the field in year 3?
Yeah, I think like there's all the components there, right, for them to be one of the top teams in the league, but they just need to make, I think, these little adjustments. I don't think they need to overreact to this tournament, but maybe does Jimmy Brennan need to adapt his style of play a little bit to suit the players he's got? Because it was the same thing as last year. It was just a shorter version of last year. They started too slowly, and it was too late to catch up by the end when they were starting to play a bit better and hit their stride. So does he need to adapt a little bit in terms of recruitment? I think it would be a mistake to kind of do away with the analytics side and that kind of road they've gone down. But I think it's also clear that a couple didn't hit this year. And so they need to adjust what kind of players they're looking for and what kind of backgrounds they're coming from. So they're kind of really close, but also, you know, we just haven't seen it all come together yet. So the components are there. They just need a couple of adaptations, I think, and then it might all click pretty quickly.
It didn't initially come to mind, but I think you raise a good point, Ollie, just in terms of the way they play. Like there's a lot of moving parts in this Y9 team, like players that kind of play everywhere. Like Telfer can move forward and back, and so can Porter, and so the list goes on and on. I think that Jimmy might need to be a little bit more rigid in terms of the system that he's playing next season, and maybe not give some of his players the freedom that he wants to give them. Just a little bit more structure would help. But I find it ironic that a team with 9 in their name still struggles to find their true number 9 up top. It's completely ironic because Rivero was supposed to be the answer. Vasconcelos was supposed to be the answer. Neither of them did that much for me. They need that number 9 up top, a true goal scorer. They scored 8 goals over the course of the 7 games played. Joe DiChiara was their leading goal scorer, and 3 of them came against Forge. I mean, they were part of the only 0-0 draw at these Island games with Valor, another team that really struggled up top, and a team that, when it came down to it, one game that mattered for them against Cavalry, after they managed to do well over the course of the tournament, they couldn't find that goal. They didn't have that player that could open things up and be a match winner from them. That's what they're missing right now. It's the most difficult position to find, and once they find it, they may be onto something.
I don't think they expected Rivero to have so much trouble with the physicality in the league.
Well,
no.
That's the nature of it, right? And especially in a difficult tournament like this, and you need to be able to play through it. Like, look, Akeem Garcia, the leading goal scorer in this tournament, is 5'6" on his tippy toes. He's not a physical player, but he uses his skill and his ability to run off the ball to make space for himself. So, look, it's no excuse for me. You know, you need to be better up top, and that's where York 9 simply wasn't good enough in this tournament.
Garcia, I think, is a lot stronger, though, even though he's only a small guy. And that's one of the things that I've noticed that this year overall, not just with York 9, is that the guys from within CONCACAF, they adapt a lot better to this league and a lot more quickly than some of the players coming from South America and Europe who, you know, Vasconcelos and Rivero, it looked like they didn't know what to expect in terms of just how physical the league was going to be, and also what the referees are going to call and what they're not going to call.
All right, then on to Pacific, one of the most entertaining teams at the Island Games. Also one of the hardest to figure out. They look impressive in a 2-1 win over Cavalry. Followed that up with a 1-0 loss to Atletico Ottawa, and needed a moment of magic from Marco Bustos against Edmonton to get to the group stage, where they lose to Cavalry and Forge to be the first team eliminated from the group stage. So what are your questions for Pacific? Go to you first, Gareth.
More maturity, decision-making. The penalties just killed them in this tournament. And I know that there was some discussion about whether they were deserved to be given. I think on the balance of it, most of them were. So I think that decision-making at the back needs to be better. I think time. Pamadou Ka just needs more time with this group. I think that finally in that last game, playing a 4-2-3-1 was a much better shape for this team rather than the 4-3-3, having those 3 kind of holding box-to-box midfielders. Playing Diaz underneath Campbell just opened things up. They were fluid from an attacking perspective. So I think it's about finding his best 11, finding his shape. And just like Halifax showed, if you put that extra attacking player in the mix, it makes you that much more dangerous. So those would be the things I point out for Pacific.
They need another center back, first of all. Lucas McNaughton, decent piece, but for me, here's your number 3, number 4 center back on your roster. He's not a starter in this league. I think he's proven that over 2 years. Can't give away bad goals. I'd call the team soft overall. They need more metal. I don't think they can win games in different ways. You saw on Tuesday night when Halifax wasn't really interested in getting up on them and getting a piece of them. They found it really easy to play. I'm not sure they can compete in games that are a lot harder and faster, games against Forge and Cavalry. So, you know, and Marco Bustos, Oliver, you asked Ka after the game if Marco Bustos was going to be around.
Right.
If I'm a Pacific fan, I'm not sure I liked his answer. It sounds like he's on his way out.
It's the Forge approach. It's the same thing as Forge do, right? Like they're not going to hold these guys back, and they think it's good for the club in the long run if they're selling players on. And yeah, that would be the big question for me is if Bustos is there or not, because he's going to be such a difference maker if he is. And if I'm the Vancouver Whitecaps, with all the money they've spent on kind of mediocre international forwards over the last few years, and I got a young and probably pretty cheap Canadian guy from the local area who would be absolutely desperate to succeed if he got another chance with that team. you got to think about that one for me, because he's playing at a level above most players in this league right now.
MLS teams have too much pride to do that. They're not bringing somebody back.
Yeah.
They're not bringing somebody back.
That'd be a mistake. They can't afford to have much pride right now about their decision making.
My question is Bustos that next level good enough? Can he provide on a consistent basis against top defenders? Can he produce like you saw at times, not every game, but at times over this tournament?
He has to be in the right situation. He has to find the right spaces on the field. It has to be the right game state. I don't think he's a player that's going to be on the pitch from start to finish in matches at the MLS level. But if you can put him in the right situation, he can have success, right?
I just think, like, is he going to be a star in MLS? Maybe if everything works out perfectly, probably not. But if you look at players like, I don't know, Lucas Venuto and Freddie Montero and all these guys who have been through the Whitecaps in the last couple of years and just had next to no impact for hundreds of thousands of dollars, like, to me, it's a no-brainer to take a kid like Bustos, who, as I say, is just going to have that. He's going to be absolutely desperate to succeed there.
He's got the talent. He's got the talent. So.
All right,
I think
finally,
MLS clubs are scared to death to do that. They don't want to put a press release out that says that.
We'll see. He put pressure on people, though. A solid performance from him. Well, finally, Cavalry could barely field the squad for their final match against Forge, but we know Tommy Wheelton Jr. won't make any excuses, and not being in the final, it's obviously a disappointment for the franchise. So, what's your take on Cavalry, and what are your questions for them going into next year, Ollie?
Same question as after last year. How do they rebuild this attack, right? Like, they just came up short against Forge in terms of breaking down a playoff defense. They didn't have enough cutting edge. They didn't have enough spark, and they need to find those types of players. And they tried to do it by bringing in Richard Luca and hoping that Sergio Camargo could stay healthy. And obviously those two things didn't work out, and they were in exactly the same position as they were last year. So it's the same offseason as they had last year for me. They just have to get better up front. And they have to find some players who can open games up when it matters, because they have everything else in terms of the spine of the team and the core that's there.
Wheels, you want this one?
Wing play. They were so good last year with Pasquati and Escalante down the flanks, and they changed this formation. And I'm not sure if it's the best way forward or not for Cavalry, playing three at the back with Farsi and Mavilla playing deeper roles. I know Mavilla has played the wing before, but you lack that cutting edge. And as soon as Pasquati went down through injury, everything became predictable and that much more narrow. So whether Escalante is back, what else they add in those wide areas is going to be crucial. So similar to Ollie, but I just think that the type of player they need are those out-and-out wingers to allow the central midfield players who are very good on the ball do their work and all their good passing to pay off a little bit in chances inside the area. Just there wasn't enough created from those spaces.
Yeah, just to add to that, they weren't going to play 3-4-3 until Escalante and Luca couldn't get in the country. And then they decided we have no left wingers, so we have to adapt. And that was where that came from.
Were we that impressed with Cavalry even when they were healthy to start the tournament?
Yes, at times, yes, very much so.
I have a lot of questions for, I just, from front to back, I have questions about the status of all these players, right? Like, is Wheeldon going to put it in another year? Trapper's getting up there in age. At what point does Dominic Zator says, okay, if I'm going to make it in this sport and I'm going to go to the next level, I got to do it now. Ledgerwood, he's getting up there in age as well. Camargo, we never see him. I know Wheels, you think he's healthy enough to be involved in the coming seasons, but we never see him. What happens with Marcus Haber? Are you guys convinced Jordan Brown's one of the best number 9s in the league? And then can you get your international signings in? I mean, is Richard Lucas still part of the future? Is Escalante still interested in coming in? It's a lot of questions I have.
Yeah, I'm a bit more optimistic about Cavalry, because I think the absences they had this year actually allowed a lot of players who you maybe wouldn't have expected to step up. So when you look at like the way Simmons played, the way Bruno Zebi played, the way Mo Farsi played, I think they're deeper than ever. When you look at the defense and the midfields, it's just about getting guys back first of all, and getting players in that they haven't had so far, and also a question of, can you rely on Camargo to stay healthy at this point?
Yeah.
How far below the standard are they from the team that went on the road and beat the Whitecaps, right? Like, that's my concern. Is this was a team that with Malonga, with Julian Boucher, with a healthy Ledgerwood were legitimate to go out and compete, at the MLS level occasionally, and it's very difficult to replace that.
I think a healthy side looks very different for Tommy Wheeldon.
Yeah, and just a quick thought on Camargo. I liken it to York 9 losing in Aparicio. It's just not the same team without him involved. And look, there was so many players that got hurt at these Island games. I'm kind of chalking this up to that being an anomaly, but Camargo did play 26 games in all competitions last year. So the questions of his durability, I'm not sure how accurate or how much that should be, made out to be. I think that Camargo comes in next year, plays a full season, and I think that they're a much different team. Team. As soon as he went out, they lost that creative influence, that link between the midfield and the attack. So just like Aparicio is so important to York 9, I mean that's Camargo's role with Calgary.
Right. This has been great, guys. We're chewing up a lot of time. We only have about 5 minutes left. So we are doing this for the next couple of days. So we'll talk about the finals over the next 2 days. We'll go through awards tomorrow or Friday as well. Right now, it's expansion draft time. We've got about 5 minutes left. So we'll try to get through this quickly. Have a little fun here. The year is 2021. There's a cure for COVID. Everything returns to normal. Canadian Premier League is so excited about the upcoming season, and they've loved the coverage of the Island Games so much that they've awarded the hardworking people at One Soccer the next 4 expansion teams for the league. Commissioner David Klanakin gets to his goal of 12 CPL teams. Hurrah. Everyone's excited. Kurt, Gareth, Ollie, myself will be the owner/GMs of these new teams. So I will be drawing names from the Stormtrooper mug here. And from you, I will need the name of your team or the location of your team. And the first player you're selecting in the expansion draft, the player has to be currently on a CPL roster. That's the only rule, really. So anyone on a CPL roster right now, that's who you're picking to start your franchise. First name of the Stormtrooper. Oh, it's not rigged. I swear.
Wow.
Lead us on.
No one's taking my player. No one's taking my player because no one believes in him as much as me.
All right, so I'm basing my team. I was thinking about the Vancouver area. I was thinking maybe Abbotsford, but I'm going right in Vancouver, going to New Westminster. Queen's Park Stadium is where we're going to be fielding our games. And so we are selecting with our first pick, Kyle Becker from Forge, taking him away from Bobby Smirniotis, building our team around Kyle Becker. He's the leader of our group. He's our captain. And we are going ahead with Kyle Becker.
How's it going to feel when he calls you before preseason and said he's been signed by an MLS team?
Kyle Becker, I was going to say, is this going to be a reluctant Kyle Becker?
Yeah, I'm taking Kyle Becker off.
All right, next one. Oh, there it is. Ollie gets the next
excellent.
pick.
All right, so I have to pick a location first?
Sure.
Oh,
how about Charlottetown then? I haven't actually seen much of Charlottetown yet, so it'd be nice. It'd be nice to come back.
Are we playing at the UPI artificial turf field?
Yeah, a little bit of renovation, some virtual stands, and it'll be good to go.
Okay.
I'll take Marco Bustos. He's a Canadian player. He's still young. He's obviously one of the best players in this league. Most importantly, or one of the important things for me, he stays healthy. He's in great shape, and you can count on him to play 25 games a year. And I don't think he's going to settle for the CPL as his end goal. And I want my expansion team to be moving players on to the next level. So I would embrace the possibility of losing Bustos within a year or two.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be playing for the Vancouver Whitecaps next year, Ollie. So
you should be. You should be.
Yeah. You guys are taking players who aren't even going to be around.
All right.
Well, he's coming back.
Kurt. What do you have?
I'm going to go to Mississauga.
That was my city. Okay.
Nice.
Scratch it out.
Well, I was gonna throw out Buffalo, New York, and then try the whole CFL thing and expand to the US before automatically regretting it and then contracting.
Shreveport's gonna come calling.
No, all right. So I'm going to Mississauga. Do it right. Give me a nice 6,000 to 7,000 seat stadium that's expandable. Make it community based. My player is Alex Marshall from Halifax because I do think he's going to be around for at least another year. He's going to be around, Wheels. Not all your guys' players aren't going to be around.
Is Alex Marshall going to start this weekend in a championship final, and you're
He
going to
should.
start building your team around him?
He should. I'd start Alex Marshall ahead of Morelli.
Oh,
What? Marshall's a really good player, but Morelli could be the MVP.
yeah, Morelli's special.
Morelli's not the MVP.
You're off the clock.
I put there's two guys on Halifax that would be the MVP before.
Thank you, Asa. Thank you.
Go.
I'm going to go down the 401, the great soccer city of London, Ontario. And this is a city that actually supports local football at all levels. It's a great atmosphere. The London Lasers, I'm going to bring it back.
Oh, done.
And they should get on with the University of Western Ontario and build a dual stadium that works for both football programs at Western, as well as the new club team, the new CPL team in London as well. I think it's proven that the best teams in the Canadian Premier League are built from the back. And unlike Kurt, I'm going to go with an actual Canadian to build out my
Don't
team.
say David Egger.
No, I'm going to go with Dominic Zator. Of course, I'm going to go with Dominic Zator, a player who is a top 3 player in the Canadian Premier League, no doubt about it. Still a good age, 25, turning 26 years of age. Leads the Island Games in terms of completed passes. He can play a right back, center back. He's adaptable in terms of his system, a beast in the air. And I think that any good CPL team is strong in the back, and you build out from there. So that's where I'm going to go with Dominic Zator.
Yeah, bad selection. Not because I don't like Dominic Zator, but because if these Island Games have taught us anything, it's that you can find good center backs and good defenders.
Been some good ones.
Go every roster now. I think every roster at this point, you have somebody across the back or even multiple center backs where you're like, that guy could play for my team.
I'm going to go with the best of the best, Kurt Larson and Dominic Zator.
I like Zator. You know that.
Cornerstone for London.
And it's not so easy and you just said that Pacific is in need of a center back, and why are Pacific going home and not playing on Saturday?
A lot left to talk about for Saturday. You guys can chat about it tomorrow, the next couple of hangouts, Thursday and Friday, leading up to the action on Saturday. Wall-to-wall coverage, One Nation, match day coverage, the match itself, and then coast to coast, all on Saturday. So you just want to snuggle up, get nice and comfy to catch all the action on One Soccer. So for Ollie, Gareth, Kurtz, that's it for tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good one.